Hey guys, I have been itching to do a video, but I have not been able to edit because I feel nauseous still. Trying to look at larger screens or to try and track the mouse with my eyes because of my concussion. So, um, figured I will try to do a video where, sorry, you guys can see S's tail. She just wants me to scratch her butt. Well, I was just trying to say, as my dog is rolling around for me to scratch her belly, that, what was I trying to say? Oh, that I figured I will just try to do a video without editing it, or I should say very minimal editing, because I'm probably going to want to at least put some color on it because I like my aesthetic. Anyways, oh, my dog is distracting me right in the beginning when we're not gonna do an edit. I wish I could show your face right now. That's a here. Oh, okay, never mind. She's trying to play with me. Never mind. Anyways, yeah, so I have been wanting to just kind of share some thoughts and honestly just create, and my dog is now playing. Oh my goodness. Hold on. She's like right below the camera line, and I'm like, I want to show you. Oh my goodness, she is. You can't even see you. She's. I just said we're not editing. Anyways. Okay, I lost my camera's tracking. So, I mostly wanted to make sure I get some, I can't. This is gonna have to be, she's so distracting. Anyways, I mostly wanted to talk about mental health, especially with it being Mental Health Awareness Month. And there's so much, uh, so many directions I could go. I really struggled to kind of figure out where to start. But the more I thought about it, the more all I could think about was my grandparents. So I think I'm just gonna roll with it. Get it, roll with it, because we're rolling camera. Anyways, yeah, I think I'm just gonna roll with it. I honestly didn't even try to like section things out on my Notion like I normally do because my dog is so distracting right now. She's like, she really wants me to play with her. And I'm really dumb to do, but I'm finally rolling camera. So, what was this? Goddamn. Yeah, I normally try to at least have a visual of which brain dumps I'm gonna talk about because that helps me have a starting point, and at least then I kind of have an idea of where I can pause the video or end the video, because otherwise we're going to be here for a long time. You're neurodivergent, you know. So, yeah, I was watching a video of me and my grandma. And if you're new here and you haven't watched my other videos, my grandparents passed, both of them, this past November. And I grew up with them. They were essentially the ones I was most attached to. And it has been very hard. And it's really interesting to me to kind of see this link between a struggle I've had my whole life, which is feeling like I'm inherently wrong, like something is inherently wrong with me, to kind of realizing, oh, when I got the ADHD diagnosis, like how much of a relief that was, and also how it just gave so much clarity. It really helped alleviate some of the burden I was carrying regarding being inherently wrong and like who I am, my identity, like at my core, to feeling like I just don't fully belong anywhere. I don't fit in necessarily, not because I can't communicate to people or whatever. It's not because I can't hang out, not for the lack of effort on other people's end. It's just like there were parts of me that was accepted, and then the other parts were too much, or other parts are accepted and then other parts that weren't enough. And linking that to how, like, my whole life and through that struggle, my grandparents were my home. Like, they were the only ones that I felt safe with, that I knew accepted all parts of me. They were the only ones that I knew have seen my extremely hyper end, my extremely loud side, the ones who also constantly saw me daydream and zoom out. Well, that's another metaphor, but zone out is what I meant to say. Yeah, they saw the quiet side of me, the one that zones out, the one that doesn't talk, the one that doesn't like, one that gets shy, but then also like simultaneously can be very energetic and just wants to climb everything and got in trouble for climbing everything. They they raised me until I was 9. And I mean, to be fair, like they weren't the only ones who raised me, but from my perspective, they were my core until I was 9. And anytime I was hurting or like whatever it was, I wanted to go running to them. And I obviously didn't know I had ADHD until a couple of years ago. I can't think right now, but I think maybe 2023. I'm not sure. But now that I do know I have ADHD, it made sense why it's so hard for me to fit in school, like in the Philippines. When I mean here too in the States, not just the Philippines, but at the time I just didn't feel like I belonged in any of the groups, in any of the friendship circles or whatever. And on top of that, I was constantly overstimulated and I hated the material of our of like the uniform. I didn't understand. I mean, I barely just understood this recently where, oh, I was so overstimulated and I hated the uniform because of how, like, the texture and everything, because of ADHD. Had I known, would have made a difference. But yeah, like all of that stacks very quickly. All of that, like, for me, like, overwhelmed me very quickly. I hated the skirts, going to a private school. And like, the school I went to was wonderful when it came to sports and everything, because if you kept going there, you'd be under good care. But like, hated the uniforms. And I also wasn't a, like, I don't know, I preferred sports, so I just didn't feel like I could speak the language that the girls did. And on top of that, I felt overstimulated. So and on top of that, I'm also actually quite shy in person. Like, if you talk to my friends now that uh, I'm still good friends with, you'll find out that usually they're the ones who came up to me. So thank you guys for approaching me, because yeah, I don't know what would have happened otherwise. So I'm typically not the person that initiates. I reciprocate very quickly, but I'm in public, I'm actually quite shy unless we're already friends, and then you'll see, my energetic side. But that said, at school, I was very quiet. I zoned out a lot. I couldn't pay attention at all. And I was very frustrated with just like everything I was feeling. Like, I just felt so much. And I don't just mean like, oh, I just feel emotion so much. I mean, like, I literally felt so much. And the lights right now, granted, that's because of my concussions, but which is actually why I'm looking this way. And I realize, like, it's my right eye. Anyways, that's a whole other story. But yeah, like, not to say that my grandparents knew I had ADHD, because I don't think they did. And I still don't think they ever looked into it. Nor do I think it would have made a difference knowing, but well, I don't know. Anyways, I know that I was a lot quieter at school unless I was playing a sport and, doing something that I enjoyed, which at the time was just sports. um, and at home, if I knew that, even if I'm not with them, but if I knew that they were around or whatever, I felt more comfortable. I could run around and play, knowing that they're gonna be home. I'll see them, etc. Um, that was that was my dynamic with them, even in their imperfections, even in God knows how many times I got in trouble with them. But even despite that, I still had a very deep attachment to them, and I still felt safe with them. Now, of course, there are a lot more nuance to how I grew up, and they weren't my only caregivers per se. There were other people that watch me, and that's a whole other thing for another time. But despite the amount of quote unquote time that I spent with other caregivers compared to them, etc., the relationship I had with them was just, in my perspective, very different, because I got to embrace the side that did get to play, but also, even from a very early age, they would just talk to me and share stuff. I may not always understand what they're talking about, and I may not even land where they're trying to get me to land, but they would share stuff and they would talk to me about stuff and they would tell me stories, and I love stories. I love that. I love hearing other people's perspectives, and I loved hearing their perspective, because it just made me feel connected to them. And I've carried that for so long, and moving away from them when I was 9 was so hard in so many levels, because of the language barrier here, having an accent as a kid. You definitely did not fit in because of that back then. Don't know now. And then just trying to figure out how to navigate different things, emotionally, all the layers of family dynamics changing, my environment being so different, feeling like I didn't have anything that was stable or something to hold on to that was an anchor. And they came with me initially, so that, you know, that was helpful as a transition. But anytime they left to go back to the Philippines, then it was hard again. And then whenever they came back, like, I loved it, and I felt like I had my anchor again. But like, you know, I never could figure out how to replicate those, for lack of better words, that similar feeling of being accepted for the different sides of me, having combined ADHD and, you know, things I'm interested in, and you know, combining the fact that I can be hyper and I love sports, but also I'm like, I love talking about all the things in depth. And if you're my friend, you know, you might get some random text from me. That, thank God, iOS messaging now has send later feature, so that my friends don't get it at 4 a.m. But yeah, like, I really struggled with feeling like, again, there's something inherently wrong with me, because in each different environment, only a specific part of Sarah was allowed or understood or embraced. And I feel like I have tried so hard to not just overcome, but navigate that narrative I've had for so long. And I understood to a degree that I was contributing to maintaining that narrative despite me not wanting to. I was contributing to it by compartmentalizing my friends. You know, I was like, okay, well, if this person isn't interested in this type of stuff, because let's just say Pokemon Go, if they only want to do sports or hikes or whatever, then cool, like, I'll do that with them, because they don't have, like, it's, you know, it's fine. I get it. I'll go play Pokemon Go with my other friends and all that type of stuff. And then if it's like, okay, these friends, I can only go as deep as, I don't know, go snorkeling with them or something, and only about certain topics. And okay, sure, like, no big deal, you know, like, I'll do that, because to a degree, I think it makes sense. Like, you know, we're not always gonna all align in everything, and that's fine. But I did want at least my innermost circles to know all the different sides of me, and I wanted to share all of me, even if I had to be considerate of what they have capacity for. And what has been so hard all my life is finding out or feeling like, oh, once they get to see, like, all different sides of me, including how burnt out I get first functioning from just day to day, including how depressed I can be, including what depression looks like and how much time it takes for me to recover from that. What does recovery look like? All those things that honestly, I'm still trying to grasp it, but I am realizing that ADHD contributes to a huge part of that. I that's something that I'm still navigating to accept. And when I struggle with a narrative that something is inherently wrong with me, and I try to show and share all of me, even if it's in moderation, and that gets misunderstood, or I feel like that side of me is rejected. And of course there's so much nuance to this, right? Like there's also the whole like me developing coping mechanism of being hyper independent. There's that layer to it. There's so much. But my right eye. Yeah, it's like when that consistently happens over and over and over, and I've felt betrayed so much by like different friendships and relationships through the years, even both after I found out I have ADHD and even before. It like putting all those things together while still trying to understand how ADHD affects relationships and how much people don't understand that it does. How much people see neurodivergent tendencies or habits just from their lens, which is extremely valid, but there isn't enough, how do I say it? There isn't enough context for them to even understand how hard we're trying to live in a society that's built for neurotypicals. And you also see so much conversations in which people who are diagnosed with certain things are the ones labeled as toxic, which, yeah, of course, I'm not here to dismiss that. I'm not here to say we can't be, but from my perspective, I just see the world not even in rainbows. I see the world not even CMYK color palettes. I see it as the color wheel with a color picker. And sometimes some people see black and white and they're stuck in that color or that section of the color wheel. And I tend to zoom out, like I actually said in the beginning of this video, and see that, oh, I can drop my color picker into a completely different color, let's just say yellow, and then move it 2 pixels to the right, and it'd be completely different hex code, but the nuance and the way the lighting hits it differently is quite beautiful, actually. If only we could hop over. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, I think, you know, I'm personally just, I can't see things in black and white. It's really hard for me to make extremely black and white statements. And I think there's a lot of things that can coexist with each other, including the fact that, yes, while, you know, we can have tendencies that are toxic to a certain degree, the diagnoses or the fact that we have one is not really the determining factor in whether or not we're the only ones who are toxic in any type of relationship, which is a whole other thing we can talk about during Mental Health Awareness Month, if I remember. But yeah, I think I have struggled with just finding that space to genuinely be grounded in all of who I am, not necessarily to justify not being considerate. That's not it. But there's a level of acceptance and being known and being seen and just knowing you can exist as you and not be understood. But also to the part where there's a level of reciprocity that feeds you and your love language, which for me was very much quality time, and hearing their perspective, like hearing just the things on their mind, and I love that. And to feel like I am still struggling with untangling all the coping mechanisms I developed, not knowing I had ADHD, and the messaging I received, even on a lighter note, not that it's necessarily light, but not as to my core as the being inherently wrong, but there are other messages I received from society that I'm trying to untangle, and going through relationships that, like, I definitely just felt betrayed in, and like I also having those types of relationships I felt betrayed in just really hit that core narrative again. And to know that not only am I distant from my grandparents this time, but this time I don't get to hug them ever again. This time I don't get to think or hope I can visit them in the Philippines, or I can see a photo of them that someone took recently, or that's this, that this time going through everything I went through, that's just having me scratch her butt again. But so here, yeah, this time I don't get to look forward to hearing their voice again, or hearing a new story, or any of that. And layered with the guilt of not spending time with them the way I wanted to, and visiting them the way I wanted to, and having more memories with them the way I wanted to before they pass. It's when, like, it's so complex, but outside of, finances, there's also the guilt of, oh, when something's not right in front of me, sometimes it's hard to remember, and then next thing you know, time just flies, and that's very much because of my ADHD, and it's not an excuse, but there is that guilt. So I feel like there's this weird layer that is added onto grieving when you're also still trying to untangle all the ways you've coped and all the traumas that you went through being a neurodivergent, and both are already hard enough by themselves, but when you put them together, it's a lot. And again, that's not to dismiss the difficulties that neurotypicals face, or anyone who's grieving faces. That's not the point of that. I just mean to say that I definitely didn't expect my mind or my body to uh, be holding on to so much messaging that was connected with ADHD when they pass. I had anticipated that I'm going to be focused on grieving. And I somehow thought that grieving was just grieving the fact that they're gone and grieving the memories I wish I had with them and grieving all that. I definitely didn't anticipate the layer of all the other narratives that I developed not knowing I had ADHD. So I share this one to kind of give an idea of where I'm currently at. I again there's so much nuance, but we'll pick another hex code another day with our color wheel. um Grief is so hard because like my relationship with my grandparents is so different from someone else's relationship with their grandparents or their parents or their primary caregivers or whoever. And even if we were to look specifically at my grandparents, like my relationship with my grandparents are very different from my cousins and all that. And like the added context of me being away from them and all that also changes the way I grieve. And a lot of people talk about, well, everybody dies at some point and like they're older. So of course, like they're gonna, that time is gonna come. And I know that. And I've known that. If anything, I've like tried to prepare myself emotionally for it. And it's just, I don't think that age alone or the fact that they're my grandparents alone is sufficient to determine how deep it hurts. And again, paired with another layer of the fact that I'm now realizing, though not fully, how me feeling so much is part of me having ADHD. And that is also something I've always struggled with is I feel everything so much and so deeply, and both sensory and emotions, and it's so complex. So I don't know how to transition, because transitions are hard, but I am doing my best to lay down the weight that I've carried, whether emotionally or whether it's energetically or whatever that may be, because I'm realizing, since I do have a tendency to be hyper independent, since I do have a tendency to try and be strong, even when I don't know I'm trying to be strong, I legit can't even process what's going on with me while simultaneously trying to carry any other load that isn't mine, whether or not, it's because somebody put on me, which is usually not the case, but it's something I took on, right? So that I don't know how long I'll be in this. I I know that seeing the videos of me with my grandparents helps remind me of the girl that they raised, and the acceptance that I felt with them. And how I show up differently, or did show up differently with them, because of that feeling of acceptance and safety. And how I don't think most people will spot the differences or the subtleties, but it's so hard for me to embrace all of me in that same way, to where, oh, like, I just exist. And it's like there's no right or wrong way to go about it. So I maybe in another video I'll show the videos I'm talking about with my grandparents. Who knows? But yeah, if you're going through grief, or bereavement, or grieving the loss or end of any relationship or mindsets or anything, I'm right in it with you. And it sucks and it's tough. And I don't really feel like there's anything I can say to make it better. And honestly, most of the time, I don't want anyone else to try and make it better for me. Um, so I'm not going to try. But I do want to say that the pain is valid and the process is valid. And it's easier for me to say than it is for me to embrace it because I'm creating timetables for myself as well. But if you're also grieving, and you're trying to just genuinely sit in and take your time, and you feel it in your body and you feel misunderstood, like, I just want to say I'm proud of you for embracing it, being in it, and giving yourself the space that you need to move through instead of trying to move out of it. So this has been quite a long video. And my eyes, actually my right eye specifically, is like still being weird because of my concussion. But yeah, I appreciate you for watching this video. If you're new here and this is your first video, welcome. And if you have watched my other videos as well and watched this, well, thank you for joining me again. I hope that I get to share the rest of Mental Health Awareness Month with you guys and talk more about different things. If you have something that you're thinking about, whether it's regarding something I said in the video or whether it's something that you would like me to talk about more, I would love for you to drop it in the comments. It's honestly, like, mental health is like hard enough to navigate, especially with the current circumstances here in the United States. So if you are new here, I hope you drop something in the comments, say hi, like, subscribe, and connect, especially if you are currently grieving. Thank you again for watching. I'll talk to you guys next time.